Okay, hello. Um, I would like to talk about the diagnostic criteria because we really need to change the words. I have decided to take offence. Everyone else seems to be taking offence at pretty much anything and everything, so I'm going to join in. Maybe I don't have so much difficulty interacting with my peers after all. Before I talk about the diagnostics, I want to say that I do know that diagnosis is difficult to find and it's often impossible to get. I am going to discuss this next, and I have even arranged a meeting with the Equalities Minister to complain. She told me for many months that my concerns were not her priority. And I pointed out that they should be. But then last week, when I told her I'd been interviewed for a piece with the Daily Express about autism diagnosis, she seemed to change her mind. Funny, aren't they? Yeah, Daily Express, me, page 29, last Friday. You could check it out. No woolly hat to be seen. My daughter forbade it. But I did sneak out of the house for the photo thing in yellow boots when she wasn't looking. Don't worry, she's not going to look at the Daily Express anyway. So, diagnosis. It is often unavailable or wrong, both unhelpful. And I also do not believe there should be any criticism of anyone who is self-diagnosed. This is often the only choice. And to exclude within ourselves, to me, that's really worrying. We're starting to do what has been done to us. And history tells us time and time again where that leads. So, not a fan of that. And again, we need to share all of this with the health professionals, the psychologists, with our family, our friends, our colleagues. Stop telling me I am deficient. Just stop it. Well, at least listen to why, and then stop it. So, if you're lucky, you can find or pay for diagnosis. But then you might start wondering why. All of the words are subjective and pejorative. They all imply deficits and criticisms. Listen. Impairment, inappropriate, narrow, exclusion, indifference, compulsive, superficial, odd, limited, peculiar, and so on. Who decided this? By whose rules is this written? And how on earth is this meant to help me feel better? Before my diagnosis interview, my husband said, "Are you worried about the diagnostic interview?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I am, but that's because I'm always worried. It's just a continual state of being. I am up and alive, so yes, I am worrying." I also explained that then I'm going to worry about lying and pretending because I'm so used to doing this in order to survive that it just happens. So nobody sees who I really am, and I can feel it. I can feel myself speaking and thinking, well, that's not what I think, but that's too many years of trying to fit in and mask. Haven't succeeded, but anyway. So I worry about accidentally telling the truth because I haven't used my intuition, to figure it out. So then I waffle and then I appear to be completely different from who I really am and I never demonstrate how I'm really feeling. My husband said, "Of course you should tell the truth." I said, "Oh, okay then. Well, I've taken great offence at the criteria and I'm going to ask the psychologist if she's autistic or not. And if not, then how is she able to understand me?" He told me this is a bad idea. He said, if you want something from her, then you shouldn't say anything critical. So I did have to lie and pretend then. So, first question, do you have difficulties interacting with your peers? Well, I would have said no. If you'd asked me when I was 18 or 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50, I probably would have said no. I would have said that I had lots of friends and that I was popular. It wouldn't have occurred to me that what I had were not friends at all and that I wasn't popular. I was tolerated and regarded as an oddity. If I made them laugh or looked after their needs or stuck up for them or did their homework or introduced them to others, then they grouped around me. How could I have known? And would it have helped if I'd realised? Might it not have made my life even more confusing and lonely? I'm not saying it would, I'm just questioning myself. Not only are the words negative, but the whole process is like trying to join a secret society. Bizarre images of floating frogs. I don't know if anybody else has had that. Very childish. And the specialist gets to decide who you are and what you are allowed to be with that tiny snapshot. And for those of us who've been trying to fit in for so long, we have no idea how to fit out. So the first thing they look for is deficits in deficits. Makes me so mad. So, number one of my marvellous skills, deficits in social interaction. Well, I had no idea there were rules of social interaction and engagement and contact and speech, and on the list goes. I had no idea, and I still have no idea. I mean, I am reading and listening and being told that these secret, invisible rules exist that they all know, but I don't understand. And if I don't understand something, well, then I can't accept it. I was told to leave O-level science class because I refused to accept concepts like the existence of oxygen unless they demonstrated it to me. Since they wouldn't or couldn't, I refused to accept the notion just because they said so. I was thrown out and never completed any science lessons again. Next deficit, social cues. Do you have a deficit in social cues? What on earth are you talking about? I took part in drama and theatre groups for years. I was very good and successful. Sometimes the script was provided and sometimes I wrote it. Once the script was learned, then the cues would become obvious. But without the script, how on earth would I have known when it was my cue? Impossible! To then be chastised or criticised or condemned for not adhering to an invisible, non-existent prompt would be crazy, surely? But apparently not. Apparently, neurotypicals are born with the script already written and all of their cues nicely highlighted so they won't miss them. Is this true? Is this a thing? I always presumed that I knew the more fun, more honest and more moral way to be, and that others aspired to it, but they just weren't brave enough. I also presumed, therefore, that they were grateful for someone who was brave enough. Fooled again, Hong Kong phooey. Now, next on the deficits is interpreting social cues. In the autism diagnosis criteria, it says there will be difficulties interpreting social cues. Who wrote this? A neurotypical? What social cues? How could I have difficulty understanding something that I didn't know existed? This implies I might have known, but then spent longer than I should trying to react appropriately. This suggests that I wanted to understand these cues, but that it was a struggle. This is not the case at all. I had absolutely no idea they existed, and I certainly was not trying to understand or interpret them. I still have no idea what they are, and I still don't understand why I have to. I mean, I do understand that apparently it would help me fit in or be regarded as more acceptable if I tried to understand them. I understand you are telling me that, but that is it. Can you understand the difference? Next, is my behaviour socially and emotionally inappropriate? Well, if this means that I am jumping around, playing games, asking lots of questions, wanting lots of answers, wearing bright colours and insisting on a floral backpack instead of a handbag, yeah, maybe. If you mean asking lots of questions with a genuine interest in the other person, their feelings and their life, then maybe. Is this inappropriate? I have read that there is something called oversharing, and it's against their rules. How could I possibly know these rules, and how could I adhere to something so subjective? How much is sharing? How much is over? Is this another of those inbuilt, innate rule books that neurotypicals are born with? But I was built with mine. Mine says it's great fun to talk and to learn and to ask and to tell. But apparently, telling the truth is socially inappropriate. And apparently, trying to help is also socially inappropriate. So when someone says they are struggling with X, Y, or Z, I'm not supposed to discuss the issue, why it probably exists, offer strategies that would address or solve it. I'm supposed to say, oh dear, that's a shame. Am I? Apparently getting very excited about a topic, especially if it's geography or sociology or philosophy or politics, is not socially appropriate. Why bring something up if no response or a very muted one is required? That seems so ridiculous and inappropriate to me. I don't want to waste my comparatively short life on wishy-washy nonsense. Am I supposed to wear grey, sit still and keep quiet, waiting to die? Would that make me immortal? To use my favourite line from Bridge of Spies, I say, will it help? And just another line that really epitomises how I feel. Mrs. Bennet, in Pride and Prejudice, says, "I do not see that. Why should I see that? Exactly my feelings." Maybe she was autistic. She did spend a lot of time in bed worrying and crying after all. Tales from the toilet. Socially inappropriate. In fact, tales from everywhere, but quite often from the toilet. What is this life, if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. A line I remember from a poem I used to illustrate some photography I did as part of my degree. The poem is about the beauty and wonder of the world, and it bemoans the fact that people miss it. I don't want to miss a thing. I want to see and feel and hear, and then I want to discuss it. Something always goes wrong in public toilets. I don't like them, so I get flustered, I trip, I get locked in, I can't find the way out. I can never figure out these newfangled sensor taps. Sometimes I miss the seat because I refuse to sit on it and I'll never look. I presume that this fun adventure can be relayed to others and that it will amuse and entertain them. Socially and emotionally inappropriate, I presume. Next on the list of horrors comes narrow interest, exclusion of other activities. Well, obviously, how else does a job get done? If I start something, I would like to finish it. I would like to address the issue seriously and complete it to the best of my ability, especially if that helps someone else. Why is this narrow? Once one area I deem to be my current special task is completed, then I'll move on to the next. When building a bridge or conducting open heart surgery or flying the plane or raising a child or even just cooking dinner, is it not advisable and preferable to focus entirely on the task in hand? And surely it is better to start at the end and work backwards. Surely you need to know where it will all end before you start. The alternative seems to me a very chaotic and unconstructive way to approach anything. But what do I know? Next, I love this one. I've got lots more to say about this further on another time. More rote than meaning. I have no idea what you mean, so I am presuming this proves the point, whatever that might be. Compulsive need for introducing routines and interests. Sorry, please forgive me, but again I have to shriek, what? Isn't that life? Isn't that what everyone does to survive? What am I missing this time? I object to the use of the word compulsive here because it implies that that's a bad thing. Get me, am I reading the underlying meaning? I am spontaneous, but only as long as I am planning it and I can include my own routines and interests. Without some sort of planning or routine and without some sort of interest that ignites thought, passion and pleasure, yeah, surely I would end up on the sofa with my daughter watching Love Island or Dance Mums or, for goodness sake, say yes to the dress. I'm not desperate to live like this. So I plan what to do and when, and I make sure it's something I care about. She compulsively watches the aforementioned programmes, but nobody seems to have a problem with that. Sorry, I'm sending my neurotypical daughter, or what is the expression? Pushing under the bus. You don't send them under the bus, do you? I don't really get that either, because who does that? So how does that work? But enough. Next criteria. Could there be any more? Could I have any more deficits? Come on, tell me about them. Does any of the above affect every aspect of my everyday life? Well, I planned it all, and I wanted to do it all, so of course it does. Does it affect others? Does that mean in a bad way? Does that imply that it shouldn't? It affects my husband, that he gets everything planned and sorted and executed. He doesn't have to repair, or prepare, or research, or think about anything. All is done, the route planned, the lunch packed, the evening dinner arrangements taken care of. He knows I have to get up at least an hour before leaving the house. I need to sit and think, I need to drink coffee, I need to use the bathroom. Is this every day? Yep. Does it affect others? No. What? Only if they feel obliged to get up at the same time? I mean, obviously I will stumble over something on my way out of bed, then I'll drop something, then I'll need the light on briefly to find something, and then I'll decide to empty the dishwasher or mow the lawn at 4 a.m. But other than that, no. How could it disturb anyone else? I don't really mow the lawn at 4 a.m. That one was a joke. Is the speech and language peculiar? Well, it's very good. Is that what peculiar means? I don't mind that others can't express themselves and often can't even conjugate their verbs properly. I notice and I wonder, But I don't mind. So why should they mind that I can express anything and everything extensively and elaborately? And I only try to use verbs appropriately because those are the rules. As I used to tell my students, if 2 plus 2 still equals 4, then using we was will never be a thing. Shouldn't have moved to Essex, should I, for that one? Next, do you misinterpret implied meanings? It's probably my favourite. For goodness sake, why are they implied? Just say what you mean, people. Delayed speech development. How very dare you? I knew every car on the road by age 2. I wrote play scripts for any and every unsuspecting guest, and indeed stranger, to perform. Peculiar voice characteristics. It's acting, darling. What do you expect? Limited use of gestures. I presume this actually means the right gestures. Limited use of acceptable gestures. I do not have a limited use of anything. I jump and dance and clap and whoop. Not at all limited then. Clumsy, which can be diagnosed, and I am diagnosed as dyspraxia, but here we are. Are you clumsy? Well, at school they gave me a tennis racket and a football and sent me outside alone when everyone else learned squash. I can't get across stepping stones unless I have a branch to hold or someone offers me merely a little finger to grasp. And when I say I can't, I really mean I cannot lift my leg in the air to move forward. I'm totally paralysed. I did try skiing, but I had to throw myself onto the floor immediately after putting the boot thing on. I was no longer connected to the ground. What's that all about? When propped back up, I was then attached to pieces of wood over which I had no control, and then I was expected to slide around gracefully. I became hysterical and was removed from the lesson. I sat in the car for 2 hours, sobbing and crying and unable to go anywhere, so no more of that. I take a tea towel, and it's not a big deal, is it? No skiing, I have to put that in there. I take a tea towel out and about in case of impromptu eating or drinking. In the car, not usually in my handbag. I will inevitably miss the cloth and spill something on my clothes. I try to look pretty for dinner, and I'm reduced to tears every time I spoil it by spilling and staining something. I try to wear girly shoes, and we end up buying plasters and pumps in the first hour. I can't open bottle tops, I have to use my teeth. And I can't open the silly slippy bags for vegetables without licking my fingers. The coronavirus thing has made this particularly hazardous, as I have to secretly move my mask, do the licking thing, try to open the bag. In the end, I just give up and buy 1 pepper or 1 lemon, hurl it in the basket. It's easier. I, as I say, have been diagnosed anyway with the dyspraxia, which makes sense and explains even more, I think, than the initial autism diagnosis. But after all of the above, was I supposed to feel better? Relieved? For lots of people, me included, it is amazing to finally understand who you are, who you have been, and why everything has been as it has. But if I were my 18-year-old self, would I want to have my deficits and disabilities and disorders listed off for me? Would I want to be told that life was never going to be quite like I might have hoped? That it would never be the same as those around me? If accompanied with all of the positive and tons of supportive well-wishers, then maybe that would help. But if you look at most of the books, and of course I did, they tell you how difficult it will be and how muggles tend to sniff out difference and reject it. Tony Attwood, sorry Tony, I hope that one day I can discuss this with you. He's the guru of autism apparently, and he has an opening chapter in which he tells parents that if they leave their child alone in the bedroom, they won't see the signs of autism. Oh, helpful, Tony, thanks for that. And when I asked the psychologist for suggestions of positive role models, she suggested a fiction book. I'm 53 years old, and the specialist tells me that to find a book about a positive and successful autistic woman, I have to look in the fiction section. Well, not anymore. We are going to keep talking, or ranting in my case. We are going to change the myths, the misunderstandings, the misconceptions, and the horrible and damaging misdiagnosis. It's okay for me. I'm 53. I can afford to work part-time as an English tutor, my work on my terms in my environment. I've got nothing to lose, so I'm doing this for my 18-year-old self and all of the others out there who have just too much to lose and are scared of the consequences if they dare to ask. If we challenge the stereotypes, and for goodness sake change the words, it will be a start. Next, I think we'll carry on with the medical profession, but we'll think about the specialists that don't know anything, but are offended when I tell them that. We need to share this with medical people if this is how you feel. If it isn't how you feel, tell me how you feel and we can talk about that. Thanks.